Tony East, Locked On Pacers. It feels like you're back in Indiana. I don't know, or you just set your hotel room up nicely over there.
I am back in Indiana. I do already miss NYC. I had a really great time. I'm sad I'm gone.
Yeah, you only come when it's nice out.
I had like the best 3 days of weather ever. I walked everywhere. It was awesome.
Yeah, when I come to Indiana, I come when it's freezing cold. When you come to New York, it's the best weather ever.
It's stunning.
I think the playoffs brought you there, right? Not the weather.
Yeah, I mean, I would have stayed if the playoffs had ended, though. It was perfect days. It was right by MSG. It was great. It was awesome.
Speaking of MSG, we're going to start with the Knicks, even though we're going to get to your Pacers. What were your initial expectations from the Knicks? And not only that, has your thoughts changed on their title chances?
Yeah, what the Pacers were saying leading up to the series is kind of what my impressions of the Knicks have been for this whole season, which is like just physical and tough. And it's not that they're physical and tough because of like one or two guys. It's like the whole team for 48 minutes plays like that, right? They don't have any soft minutes or moments where you're going to be able to, push into them a little bit. And that's tough for any team. Like the Cavs last year in the playoffs were like, oh my God, we're not ready for this at all. So like you have to be ready for that for 48 minutes. And the Pacers said they were. And in the first half of both of these games, they've been pretty good at handling it. And in the second half of both these games, they haven't. And you've seen that pop up in like everything the Knicks are good at, right? Jalen Brunson gets going a little bit in one of the second half quarters in both games. Their offensive rebounding gets better in the second half of both games. Isaiah Hartenstein just is the offensive beast in all these moments. Like they can't play their game as well when the Knicks start to play their game, and that's a credit to the Knicks. And so that's really stood out. And the other thing is, I think people here locally made a big deal about depth, and I think that was right to be a point because the Pacers can play 9 guys and the Knicks can play 7 usually, and now it's even going to be hard to do that because of Anunoby being hurt. But the problem is, yeah, the Pacers play more guys who are good, but the Knicks have their starters out there all the time. Like Hart literally isn't sitting. Like DiVincenzo and Brunson sit for 5 minutes, so that's not really an advantage. Like your depth players aren't better than Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. So I think that's been really interesting so far. And as for their title chances, I think fully healthy, they'd be pretty dang good. But the problem is they just keep dropping like flies. Unfortunately, it's horrible.
Speaking to that, how do you feel like the OG injury impacts this series?
Yeah, the thing that's like specifically to this series standing out about that is we've already seen the Knicks be kind of small, which is weird to think about. But
because they rebound so well, it's part of it, right?
Yeah, it's like you don't think of them as a small team because Hart's so good on the glass, though.
Right.
Just they overcome it, right? But the best Pacers lineups, like numerically and even watching these games, have had all 3 of Siakam, Toppin, and a center because they have a size advantage. Like Siakam's being guarded by a 3, and then Toppin's guarded by a 4. And now without OG, that's even harder, right? Because it's going to be Precious, I guess. But even he can't play the whole game. He'll be playing some center. Hartenstein can't play the whole game. So that big lineup will be even better. So one thing that changes about the series is that lineup I think you're going to see a little more of until OG returns. And 2 is just that he's guarded Siakam like all the time. And Siakam hadn't had a good series yet. So without him, how do they try to make it so Pascal can't be the guy he was in the first 2 games of the Bucks series where he was just like the best player in the NBA for 2 games?
You mentioned how big Indiana is, and I'm thinking like this just came to my thought. Maybe in the modern game, so much of rebounding has to do with speed, feistiness, effort more than size at this point because the game is so spread out.
I mean, isn't Josh Hart like the perfect guy to say that?
Exactly.
He has the thing about Hart that is crazy to me is like even when Siakam or Turner or Jackson or whoever's like right by the ball, Hart can still get it. And I think that is exactly what you're saying is that he's fast, he's athletic, he's going to go up and get it. Like even if you're kind of boxed out on him or someone else, he's slithery and fast and can jump really high and they're going to tip it. Like I tweeted a video of this play last night, second quarter of game 2, Deuce McBride misses a 3. And the Pacers are like not well boxed out, but like they know where all the Knicks guys are. And Isaiah Hartenstein jumps higher than Isaiah Jackson and just tips it, right? That's what the Knicks do. And then Josh Hart kind of boxed out by Ben Shepherd. He does the same thing. He just tips it. And the Knicks get the rebound because they had 2 guys who could just be athletic and jump up and tip it and they get the ball back. Like that's what they can do. And Hart is the perfect guy to, kind of emblematic of that. But OG's a decent rebounder. Precious is a great rebounder, and he's not huge. He's big. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think as the NBA transitions to skilled size, as Rick Carlisle likes to say, those guys are going to be really important.
Speaking of Rick Carlisle, fined 35,000. A wise man tweeted. A wise man named Tony East. You could catch him at Tony R East, right? That's the
Yes,
Twitter.
sir.
Yes,
That's my
sir.
middle name. R.
Rick Carlisle has been fined $35,000 for public criticism of officiating after Game 2. NBA says in a release. What are your thoughts on the officiating in general? There's complaints coming from both sides. How would you
Knicks this
grade?
morning.
How would you grade it? How do you think about this chaos when it comes to the officiating?
Yeah, my thing usually, like, I would say 99.5% of games, like, I don't even notice officiating, like, ever. And fans will be tweeting at me like, "Oh, this call was bad and that call was bad." And I just like I didn't even notice like during the game, like
Right.
maybe it's just how the NBA's played or how good some of these players are, but I don't notice. I noticed in game 1, like the kickball was really bad, right? And the illegal screen, the thing about the illegal screen that was weird is they said in the report that they missed another illegal screen on Turner on the next possession. That's why everybody thought it was so weird, because they missed so many of those. Like, why did they call that one specifically? But the Pacers have given up 120 plus in both these games. Like, it's weird for me to hear them call or cry foul about officiating when they're playing such bad defense. I know it's kind of related, but in game 1, I thought there were some like, I get why they're so frustrated. In game 2, Carlisle got ejected, obviously, and didn't think they had a fair chance. But I didn't really notice as much in game 2. Is what I'm trying to get to. Like, I noticed in game 1 at the end, I get why they were frustrated. I didn't, it was back to a normal game for me for game 2. And the Knicks now saying Brunson's getting foul at time. There's that picture of his jersey getting held by Haliburton. Like, that's what he's good at, is drawing contact. When he takes 16 free throws in their closeout game 6 game, like, he's a monster at that kind of stuff. So I think it's right for both teams to have gripes. The thing about the raw number, doesn't 49 sound like insane as like a 1-game number? My guess is like, and John Hollinger kind of tweeted this, is it's like, here's 5 plays that happened in the game, right? 4 of them were called the same way and 1 wasn't. So they're really sending all 5 to point out that the 1 feels wrong, but that's 5 clips. You know what I mean? So like that's going to stack up to a high number, but it's really only 1 play. Like, I don't know the exact details or anything like that, but that's just what I am guessing makes that number look so insane. Cause like, that's 1 play per minute. That's ridiculous. That's obviously not what's happening. So I get why they're really frustrated at a tie game at the end of game 1 to have 2 calls feel, unfair, but game 2, they can't guard. They got to guard.
Give me a grade. Give me a grade letter for the officiating overall. First 2 games.
I mean, they even said they missed the kickball. Like, they said it themselves.
They're great at themselves out here.
Yeah, they're great. 4 missed calls in the 2-minute report. I mean, it's hard to give that better than like what, C+, C at best.
Okay.
Game two is better. I mean, to me, I get that the Pacers didn't feel that way. But it was funny because game 1, Rick Carlisle was like, "Yeah, we can't get distracted by the officiating. Like, it was not our big issue." And the players were all like a little frustrated.
Well, it was actually like a subtle shot. Like, we're not expecting to get calls.
Yeah, we're not expecting calls in here. But then game 2 was the opposite. Game 2 was Rick being like, "Oh, this isn't right. Small market, blah blah." And all the players were like, "Yeah, we got to play better." So I think the players felt better about game 2's officiating, and I also do. So I'll give that, like, I guess a B+, a B, A-. I don't know. Okay. Never perfect. Perfect, but always good.
We talk Knicks a
little
bit.
What do you think? New York side, what do you think?
I don't know, man. The rest, no, it's not good, man. It's. I don't think it's been good.
Well, here's the thing.
Even with the screen, right? Like, that was the right call. I think
Yes, I agree.
The debate is, should you call that in that situation when there's a lot of that going on and you're not calling it? But by the letter of the law, like, that was an illegal screen.
It was. And DiVincenzo gets his what's the acting awards called?
And he acted. I mean,
he sold it, and that's great. No, that's impressive. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Every series has had official complaints, right? Like, this isn't native to Pacers.
I mean, doesn't this happen? I mean, has there ever been a series in the history of the NBA that's somewhat, especially if it's somewhat close, right? It's like
perfect refs. We lost. No one's ever said that.
Yeah, never. All right, we talked Knicks a little bit. We talked officiating a little bit. So now let's shift to the Indiana Pacers and a guy I've been really high on for years since college, Tyrese Haliburton. But I feel like he's getting a little bit of criticism now. I don't know. You could tell me the zeitgeist of how the Indiana Pacers fans feel, but I see it a little bit online, like the shot creation at the end of games. And that wasn't one of his strengths coming out of college, but I thought it would be good enough. I thought he'd improve upon it, and he has. But is there any concern when it comes to Tyrese moving forward with the Indiana and having that guy that could create a shot? That's part of the reason you brought Pascal in, right? Because he could do that. I just think like you could be a very great, excellent player. LeBron is a top 2 player of all time. I think there's many players that are more elite at him than creating their own in the half court, right? Than LeBron James. It doesn't mean he's not a top 2 guy. So you could point at any player and find a weakness, but does this cause any concern for you?
Not really. Well, for 2 reasons. One is that before he got hurt in January, he was taking those shots himself and making like all of them,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, the in-season tournament was obviously magical for the Pacers. I don't know how much any injuries impacting him now. He has the back thing. I think that he is so naturally pass first. And
100%.
He's gotten away from that a little bit. It's really hard to like not be who you are though as a player, right? Like I don't Luka's better, right? Duh, but like what is the Mavs? They've lost like 6 game ones in a row or something. Like I think Luka's a little bit this way too, where there's an element of these kind of players to like feel out a series a little bit, you know, when it starts and like see what the coverage is, see where they're gonna. Tyrese will never be like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. But like, I think there is an element of that to it, and he's been way better in both game twos once he understands kind of what the coverage will be, where he can attack, what the soft spots are. And I think at the end of games that resets, where it's like, okay, the game is slower. They're defending us in a certain way. They're trying to cut off certain things. Let me see what that is. And so that tends to him like, okay, once the defense flattens out, where's our mismatch? Or, okay, they cut off our first action. How do we reset? How can I get a good shot for my team? And so it's not when you're pass first, it's not as natural to just be like, okay, our action's cut off, my turn, right? Like I don't know that he thinks that way all the time. I think he does a lot of the time and used to all the time. But now that he has another talented teammate like Pascal and they're very much a ball movement team, he thinks about it and sometimes you just got to go. And so it's like against your own instincts. Sometimes I think Giannis is kind of he says he's pass first too. Like he thinks the same way at times. There's a lot of stars you could lump into this group. So on one hand, like, yeah, you want, if you're the Pacers and you're a fan of the Pacers, you want to be like, dude, shoot, like do it. You're the guy. But I understand that what makes him him and what makes him as good as he can be at his best requires a lot of that kind of stuff. And sometimes it can look clunky or weird.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Giannis because I was actually thinking about this with Giannis. Like he needed Chris Middleton, right, to finish games for him. And not saying Tyrese can't do it because Tyrese is better in the way better shooter, and obviously he created his own even better in the mid range or from 3 than Giannis. But it's like the balance is needed, and Pascal is the guy that's supposed to provide this balance. How do you feel about his play so far? And is he the swing factor in his play for how Indiana could rack up some more victories?
Yeah, he has been a little below what I would have expected from him in this series. I think everybody would probably feel that way. Not making, and it's look, I'll give him the benefit of being guarded by OG, right? That does make it harder to get good shots. And if anyone knows how to slow Pascal Siakam, it's a guy who guarded him in practice for what would that be? 7 years, 6 years, a long time.
Right,
with the Raptors,
right. That makes sense. So
he's gonna know that style well. In the first round, obviously Siakam was great. 19 in game 1, took him 16 shots to get there. 14 in game 2, took him 18 shots to get there. Right? The efficiency has not been where it needs to be. It was fine in game 1, to be clear. Like he was just in games 1 and 2 of the first round, he was just destroying Brook Lopez. Like Brook Lopez had no chance against him, and he had 30 billion points in both those games. Right. Lopez is slow and like willing to concede shots that Siakam's good at, and Anunoby's shutting those off, and he's not making them as much. I thought Siakam was really good to close game 6 of the first round as well. I think people forget about that game because he only finished with 19 points, but I think 16 of them were in the second half. Like when he's at his best, he's just flow state in the mid range, like all game. Took 12 twos that game. I don't know how they get him back to that against the Knicks, but I think with OG out, he'll have more chances to do it. Like he won't have such a difficult contest. He'll be guarded by a slower player. Presumably, I'm guessing Achua is going to start for the Knicks. I don't know that, but if it is, I think he can exploit that matchup pretty well in terms of getting to the basket more. And then once you get by a guy a few times, he sags off. Then he can hit those middies. I think he'll be better now, but he's been kind of wobbly in the series. And the big discussion locally is like, what is going on at the foul line? This is ridiculous. I mean, he's been terrible from the stripe since game 4.
I feel like league-wide free throws have been down. I got to look at those numbers.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's missing free throws.
He is 4 for his last 14 from
Oh
the
my
line right
God.
now.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
it's really rough. 1 for 5 in game 5 of the last series, 1 for 3 in game 4, and then 2 for 6 so far in the Knicks series. It's just you don't see that like he's never been a great free throw shooter, but he's like over 3/4 in his career. It's been really weird. So maybe there's some mental component to this too, but they won their first series because he was so good early in the series. Like they need him to get up to a higher level to win this series too. And maybe OG being out makes that happen, but it hasn't happened yet for one reason or another. They need him to be a little better. What do
He
you
hit
think about that?
which part of it?
Uh, well, one, the OG factor. Like, do you think that's a big part of it? And two, can actually get him going? Do they need to?
Yeah, I think, I mean, sometimes I think players hit streaks during the course of the series. Like Brunson's first 2 games against the Sixers weren't good. It happened. These guys are human. Like you can't just play great every game. And
Yeah.
I seen Pascal versus the Nets, and I know this is against the Nets, literally hit. It felt like, I don't know if you remember that game. It was an unimportant game, but I watched the whole thing. He literally hit like 7 mid-range in a
Oh, that
row.
fourth quarter.
That was
Yeah. Oh
ridiculous.
my God.
Like
Yeah.
that was like glitchy. Like I don't see stuff like that often. And he has the ability to do that. And then on top of it, the OG factor, like, styles make fights. Some players just look better against certain players and worse. OG won't be there. And that probably could help Pascal have a big game tonight. It feels like, everything goes back to the law of averages and then OG out. It feels like this should be a big Pascal game. And he's at home.
Yeah, that'll help for sure. I'll just be really curious in general how the Knicks try to defend differently now because they lost a stopper, right? Like it's not just like, oh, we'll keep trying to do the same stuff. Like you kind of can't, right? I mean, I almost feel like if you send 2 to Tyrese, you're screwed because now you're playing 4-on-3 at the back line and you have Siakam on the team and like Nemhard's having a good playoffs and Turner's having a good
Yeah.
playoffs. Like
It's
that's tough. I don't
it's
know, but I don't know
it's
how they change it either.
It's also funny because we saw the Minnesota series. Even if you have a great defender like Rudy, it could kind of change the look. And then
That's true.
the other team has schemed for this type of defense the whole time, and it kind of messes you up. Like, who knows, man? These playoffs are just crazy.
Well, ironically, one of the Pacers' worst offensive games of the playoffs was against the Bucks without Lillard. I wonder if they could just scheme a better defense without him. And obviously, he's a bad defender. But like sometimes these good players being out just like gooks up the game in a weird way. It's not over yet.
Yeah, it's an interesting, with the good player out thing we saw with John Moran, or is Memphis better without John Moran, right?
No.
No. Is
On.
LeBron better? Are the Lakers better without LeBron? No. But when it's like a 1 or 2 game sample size, sometimes the ball moves a little bit better without your best guys. Sometimes it's hard to scheme to get against because you're used to trying to take away something. Now you don't know what to take away.
And when you see this a lot is after trades, like the Hornets, for example,
right?
Like they traded like half their team, and so everyone's like, I don't know how to guard this Hornets team. It's just a whole new team. They didn't even do it with stars, but they were like they won 4 games in a row after that. Like it just sometimes that's just how it is.
And also, in that case, it probably doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen like this in the playoffs. You sleep on a team a little bit, even if it's slightly, right? Like, they don't have their best guy. We got this one. And even that little creep of overconfidence could really hurt you. All right, we hit them with all the radio media hits, like Knicks title chances, the officiating chaos. But now we're going to get to the deep cuts, Tony. We're going to get to the deep cuts. TJ McConnell minutes. How do you does he need more? Does he need more minutes? Because obviously he's a really good basketball player, right? And on defense, it's really important to have him on Brunson. But on offense, does he maximize what Tyrese does is another question, right? Like, how do you feel about it? I do think he should probably be playing more than 20 minutes a game. And often it feels like he's playing more than 20 minutes a game outside of last game when they really missed him in the end there.
I said yes. I just talked about this on my show too. So good time to ask. It's hard with him, and it's funny to say this against the Knicks who have guys that just go balls to the wall for 40 plus minutes. But like, I don't know what, like, there's got to be a limit of like, you can only play TJ McConnell for this many minutes and have him play at that level. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that number is, but it's probably it's higher than this. Right. It's higher than low 20s. And the thing that's made him so well, he's been awesome on both ends. The Bucks, the second he'd come in, the second McConnell would check in, they're in zone, right? Immediately they go zone, and so the Pacers have to like bring in McDermott and like change up the way they're playing. And finally, in Game 6, he figured that out. The Knicks, it's so not the Knicks to go zone, right? So they're going to be in man all the time. And so he's been able to cut that up. He gets that little 8-footer. He makes it. He gets to the paint. He passes, sets up his teammates. Like, he had 10 and 12 assists in the last game. Like, on offense, he's been awesome. and making he's been the straw that stirs the drink and makes the Knicks get in rotation and communicate. And he's been probably their best Brunson defender. Although we could talk about that in a second because I don't know that it matters to me too much who specifically is on Brunson, and I can explain why in a second.
Yeah.
But he has been really good, and the fact that he's been so effective on both ends means if he's a two-way guy, you have to get him out there as much as you can. For who is the harder question? Nembhard's been good. Haliburton is Tyrese Haliburton. So, like, do you go small and get Neesmith out? Do you get creative? I don't know. Like, the thing they've had to figure out the whole playoffs is, like, if him and Haliburton are out there together and Haliburton takes it up, McConnell's not that helpful because he's not a great shooter. 100%. So he's much better if he is the one ball handler and Siakam's the other one. But then you really are only limiting him to bench minutes anyway. So it's kind of like, how do you get him more minutes in a way that makes sense is a really hard question to answer for the Pacers, even though I agree with you that he should play more because he's playing good. Maybe it's just play those bench lineups a little more.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts? You just mentioned, or you alluded to, like, the Brunson thing. You're not sure, like, if it matters who guards. I mean, some of that just, I talked to my friends around the NBA. There's just, like, some players you can't turn off.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way they're guarding him, right? The second Brunson gets a screen, there's two up to him, right? Like, they don't want him to see. If you're gonna send two to the guy,
well, wasn't Reggie calling for more of that one game? So I felt like they weren't. Yeah. They weren't always doing that, right?
They would, like, stunt and recover and all that. But, like, if you're gonna,
which is tough with Josh Hart and Hartenstein because they play so well 4-on-3.
Yeah, Hartenstein's passing in game 2 is ridiculous. Like, he'd get it at the top, at the high post, and just distribute everywhere.
He has some Draymond stuff to his game, like, when it comes to 4-on-3. Yep,
dude. And he's the thing is too, you can't back off too far because that floater is like unbelievably accurate in the series. So if you're gonna send two to him and try to play 4-on-3 at the back, it matters who's on him, but, like, what really matters is who the back guys are, right? You need them to be the best guys possible. So if McConnell being on him means the three guys at the back is the best, then yeah, do it, right? That's what it is. But that's why I say it doesn't matter. Like, it should probably just be two small guards so that, rangy guys can rotate behind the play. Because how many times in game 2 did you see Brunson sees two, he hits Hartenstein hits a shooter, bucket, right? Like, that happened like 4 or 5 times. And so the Brunson creates that shot. Like, it doesn't matter who's on him. It could have been you, me, Haliburton, whoever. It doesn't matter. Like, they're getting that shot anyway. So, yes, like, individually, one-on-one, McConnell's best pressure. McConnell has been the best guy at pressuring him and, like, making him uncomfortable, right? For sure. And that matters. So maybe you should go to that a lot. But, like, I'm at the point where it's like, it doesn't matter too much. Like, mix it up if you have to. But what really matters is making sure the rest of the play is not so easy for the Knicks in the ways it has been so far, because that's where they've really torn them up. They've shot at unbelievable games.
Previewing game 3, what are your thoughts? What are you looking for? What are some X factors for the Pacers or even for the Knicks?
Pacers, I mean, we just talked about a lot of their defense, but they got to defend better. Like, they can't, maybe they can, but giving up 120 plus every game is just, even at their offensive levels, been so hard to keep up with because the Knicks are such a good defensive team, and you're not getting that many extra chances against the New York Knicks, right? So you have to be on your A game on your one-shot offense, and the Knicks have been, and the Pacers need to figure out how to slow it down. And we just talked about a big part of it, which is Brunson's unbelievable, but, like, man, DiVincenzo is just getting whatever he wants a lot of the time. And they had a lot of these, like, Josh Hart takes one step towards Brunson and then just cuts, and he's open.
Yeah.
You can't be giving that up. And I don't know what you do about Hartenstein if he's just making all these floaters, because you got to concede something at some point. But maybe Precious playing makes it a lot easier for them to defend. Like, they won the Achua minutes in game 2. He's fine. He's a good player, I think, but it's really hard to figure out.
He's actually exceeded my expectations, to be honest.
Yeah. I think a lot of Knicks people have said something similar.
Yeah.
But like, how subtractive is he, do you feel like, in that starting 5? Because he can't shoot that well, so he's not really a spacer, but you can't keep him around the basket because then Hartenstein can't do his thing. So it's like, maybe defense is just easier for the Pacers because of that alone, but there's a lot of little. That's the biggest thing to me. The rest of the series is how much can they clean up on that end, because they can whine about this and that, or say whatever. If you give up 130, you lose. Like, you're just gonna lose.
It feels like a lot of it will OG out, and then if we have Precious and Hartenstein playing together, it really comes because Brunson's probably going to get his. Josh Hart, how many threes can he make? Because he's going to get open threes.
He keeps making them every game, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, he got, like, his energy transfer. This is kind of like nerdy basketball talk. We don't have to get into this right now. It, like, breaks my basketball mind, but he knocks them down through, like, will, it feels like.
every game, it's like, oh, he can't keep making. Oh, nope, they made another one. Okay, it's unbelievable.
Tony East, great stuff. Let everyone know where we could find you, social media, podcast, and everywhere else.
Yes, sir. Tony R. East, like you said, R stands for my middle name. So it's not Tony Reese, even though that's what it looks like. Talking conversations like this on Locked On Pacers all the time. Dug into a lot of the Anunoby numbers and lineup data yesterday and writing in lots of places, but you can find it all on my Twitter feed.
Let me know next time you're in New York, Tony. All right.
I should have.
All right.
I was so busy between the games too because it was my fiance's birthday, so I had like family FaceTimes and stuff. So
happy birthday.
The only day off I had wasn't actually a day off, and the Pacers practiced. But
okay,
I want to actually meet up with people instead of just like walking around like an idiot tourist and like looking at my phone trying to figure out the E train to the air thing to just. I looked so stupid.
You know the solo missions are sometimes good, man. You know, clear your mind.
I got around. I made it home.
I was going through Indianapolis. I actually met some friends out there. Shouts to my friends I did meet out there. But some solo missions once in a while, seeing new places. I know New York's probably not new to you, but Indiana was to me. So yeah.
And I tell you what was new to me. I know your listeners might not care about this. I walked through FIT by accident. Oh my God. I stood out so much. I was wearing sweatpants and a golf polo. I was like, I should not be here. What am I doing? I didn't even realize that's what it was. It was just like on the way to some restaurant I was going to. I was like, oh, this is.
You walked right through a fashion.
This is not right.
Fashion Institute of Technology. Shouts to them. Shouts to them. Tony, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show and talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anytime.